Hello friends and fellow VEDSies, and welcome back to VEDS, specifically a Forum Friday video, which may or may not come out on Friday. We'll see. You may have noticed that I got off track this week. That wasn't because anything happened, it's because I needed a day off. This has been a weird VEDS for me. Don't get me wrong, I've loved doing it. The community is as great as ever. I've loved y'all's videos. I am fairly happy with the videos I've been putting out, but outside life mixed with just not doing the preparation that I usually do for VEDS and having a very loose idea to try to wrap my videos around, all kind of compiled into me constantly feeling like I've been on the back foot this month. And that means that some days it's been really hard to get a video out. And I kind of kept telling myself, you don't have to do it today. And then I would put out a video. And eventually I was just like, nah, we're taking a break. I need to just rest. And I did, and I'm happy, and now I have to catch back up. Which I will do by talking about some of y'all's videos and just kind of the conversations we've been having around VEDS. Starting off with one of Jeffrey's videos, his video on adaptations, which I greatly enjoyed. I love talking about adaptations and how you can change things. My love for mythology influences that a lot because myths changed over time, and now we have 3 or 4 versions of different myths, and you really can't track down the definitive version, which to me just makes these stories even more interesting. I like the contradictions, I like the different interpretations, I like the different levels to everything. And I kind of wish that we had more stories that were in the public domain that we could reimagine in different ways. We have some. Wizard of Oz back there. James is doing a whole thing on that. And of course, we have things like Peter Pan. Peter Pan especially fits into a really interesting space as we imagine nostalgia in childhood. Some people really romanticize that, and some people try to make it really cynical. But I often wonder, what would it be like if Star Wars was in the public domain and we could see what people's different interpretations were? I mean, Star Wars is pretty bare bones, just the hero's journey, so we can basically see that. I'm rereading Aragon right now. That's basically just A New Hope. But, you know, what if you actually took the tools that George Lucas used, you know, the little chess pieces on his board, and you actually gave that to everyone? I think that would make for a lot of bad Star Wars stories, but also probably a lot of interesting ones. But no, everything has to be owned by a corporation nowadays, and we'll only ever get one definitive version because brand integrity! Yay! By the way, my favorite adaptation recently, The Sandman. Netflix really hit the ball out of the park there. They might not bring it back for season 2 because it was very expensive, but luckily Neil Gaiman has the rights to take it to another studio if they also want to pick up on a very expensive show. They change a lot. They change the time period. They mix and match some of the stories together. But all of the changes still are rooted in like the central idea, and in many ways it distills the story, turning the episodic issues into like one long character arc for Morpheus. I still like the comic a lot, and probably more than the show, but I feel like the show does certain story beats very well and better than the comic. Kind of spinning off of the idea of telling stories, I want to talk about one of Alicia's videos she did about the poem Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep, I think it was. Her poem in response to that was Stand at My Grave and Weep. But the whole video kind of centers around this idea of looking ahead to when you're not going to be here and imagining how people will mourn you. In some cases, laying out how you would like to be mourned. I mentioned in the comments that I do have some guidelines for what I want to happen at my funeral, but more specifically, I have things that I don't want to be mentioned, or songs to be sung, or just kind of tone to be captured. Stuff that I would rather not be a part of my memorial. And I will admit, I do struggle with this sometimes. Is it selfish to tell other people how to mourn you? After all, that is their process. You won't be there. At the same time, that is your last chance to kind of tell your own story. It's giving your last chapter of your autobiography in its own post-mortem way. And that's why, for me, I want to be very clear about what is okay and what is not preferred. And this video is getting kind of long, and I kind of need it to be short so I can actually get it out on time. So let me speed run through a couple things. I've really enjoyed all the responses to my question about what age of yourself would you like to take a road trip with. Graham, I think, had a very interesting answer that kind of goes against mine, because I don't want to get into a car with a version of me that is not at least 12 or younger, because that's bad. Me back then was so obnoxious. Over the age of 12, nah, they're getting kicked out on the side of the road. Of course, Abby put up their great video responding to that, which Tessa then responded to. And Tessa, that may be my all-time favorite video of yours. You speak with that with such passion and sincerity, and it's really honestly inspiring to hear you talk like that. And James, I really enjoyed your video about the Dick Van Dyke Show. That was one of my favorite shows as a kid, and I haven't gone back and revisited it yet, but your video is really lighting that fire, because I am very curious now to see what I would think of it going back to it after all these years. And that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Hopefully I can get it out today and get back on schedule. Friends and fellow VEDSies, I will see you tomorrow.